Welcome to the National University of Ostroh Academy. Next 20 minutes we will spend together discovering the history and the spirit of this place. The modern-day university in Ostroh could be considered as one of the newest universities in Ukraine. At the same time, founded in the 16th century, its counterpart became the first higher educational institution in Eastern Europe. In the 16th century, Ostroh was one of the largest Ukrainian cities. It was marked on all European maps, and according to the privilege, annual fairs were held in the city. In addition to economic, Ostroh was also a huge cultural and educational center. Ostroh has reached its greatest bloom in the time of Prince Vasil Konstantin Ostrovsky. He had enough power and money to independently manage the Ukrainian lands, which were part of Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. As main defender of Orthodoxy, Prince Ostrovsky felt responsible for the development of Orthodox Church, culture and education. And for that purpose, 445 years ago, in 1576, he established here in Ostroh the Slavic Greek Latin High School, better known as Ostroh Academy. His niece, Princess Halshka Ostrovska, provided a significant financial support to the academy and became the first woman patron in our lands. Even for the 16th century, the Ostroh Academy was a unique educational institution. It combined European traditions of learning with local specificity. Our students studied 7 liberal arts as in all Europe, and they were studying higher science as theology, medicine and philosophy. And they studied 5 languages: Latin, Greek, Polish, Hebrew and of course Old Slavonic language. Simultaneously with the foundation of the academy, Prince Ostrovsky opened a printing house here in Ostroh. He invited from Lviv a famous printer Ivan Fedorov, and here in Ostroh Fedorov printed 6 of his 12 books. He printed some books for our students, but the most outstanding work was the Ostroh Bible, which was printed in 1581. The Ostroh Bible is the first complete printed edition of the Bible in Old Slavonic language. But before the Bible was printed, the text itself should be prepared. And our teachers and students, headed by the first rector of the academy, Herasim Smotritsky, were engaged into translating the Bible from Latin, Hebrew, Greek into Old Slavonic. During the lifetime of Prince Ostrovsky, the academy had enough money to exist. But after he died, the academy gradually declined, and it was finally closed in 1636. The revival of the Ostroh Academy became possible only in 358 years. But we should remember that in the late 20th century, Ostroh was not a big city. There was no Prince Ostrovsky with his money, but there were people who believed and who wanted to restore the Ostroh Academy as an important part of Ukrainian culture and history. The Ostroh Academy was restored in 1994 by a decree of the first president of Ukraine, Leonid Kravchuk. The rebuilding of the Ostroh Academy is a real miracle made possible by a sacrificial work of hundreds of people. The university started its activity with 100 students, 3 specialties and 5 typewriters. And after 27 years of our new history, we've undergone a rapid path of development from the Ostroh College to the National University of Ostroh Academy. The modern Ostroh Academy is a good example of combinations of traditions and modernity. Unfortunately, the buildings of the Ostroh Academy from 16th century did not preserve these days. And today the university located in premises with its own history. They performed different functions in different times. There were Capuchin Monastery, Count Blood of Women's School, Polish Seminary, Soviet Pedagogical School, Boarding School, and Secondary School number 4. And today, except of studying rooms in the territory of the university, we have a student teaching church of Saint Fedor Ostrowski. The church was built in the 18th century by Capuchin monks who are Catholics. In the Russian Empire, the monastery was closed. After some time, here was opened women's schools, and the church became an Orthodox one. In interwar Poland, the church became again Catholic. And during the Soviet time, this building was used as a gym. With the revival of the Ostroh Academy, the life in the church revived as well. Today, the student teaching church of Saint Fedor Ostrowski is also part of our museum, and here we save a huge collection of iconography. The icon of Saint Stephen and Christ Pantocrator is special in our collection. On this icon, two chronologically different in the time of writing images overlap in a strange way. First of all, it was an icon of Saint Stephen, but later it was used to paint an icon of Jesus Christ. During the revolution in 1917, this icon was shot by soldiers and left on the road. Both images became visible just after the restoration in 1990s, and now it looks like Saint Stephen covers with his hand the mouth of Jesus Christ. And if we will see the icon from the different side, we will see that in the center, where the hand of Saint Stephen is, there is no patch, no bullet got there. The collection of old printed and rare books is the pride of our university, and the uniqueness of this collection is not only in the value of the exhibited books, but also in fact that all these books were donated to our university by our patrons and friends. The oldest book in our collection is the manuscript The Apostle in the early 17th century. This book is a handwritten copy of the Apostle printed by Ivan Fedorov in Lviv in 1574. At the first glance, it's difficult to distinguish that this book is not printed but actually written by hand. And the most modern book in our collection is the Ostroh Bible, but not in Old Slavonic language. This Bible is published in the modern Ukrainian language. Our professor Rafael Tarkonyak translated the Ostroh Bible from Old Slavonic to modern Ukrainian. One of the most valuable art collections of our museum is a collection of sculptures by the outstanding Ukrainian artist Petro Kapshichenko. He was born in Ukraine, but after World War II he forced to move to Germany. Then he spent some time in Argentina and he lived in the United States of America. For his difficult but full of creativity life, he created more than 7,000 sculptures. The main topic of his works is human. He recreates people's life, their characters, with incredible realism. Maybe the most exciting part of our museum is the monastery undergrounds. The cellars under the church during the monastery time had a cult purpose. It was used for burials of honored persons. But after the closing of the monastery, unfortunately, all burials were ruined, and no original tombs did not preserve these days. But during the university time, our historians, students, and professional archaeologists excavated their undergrounds and restored it. An underground art gallery is the most dynamic part of our museum. Located in the basement of former monastery, it's a good place for our permanent exhibitions. And for example, now in these rooms we have an exhibition which presents the Trypillian culture. Trypillian culture existed in the Ukrainian lands 6,000 years ago. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of facts about the life of this culture, but thanks to the unique artifacts, some of them are presented in our collection as well, we can imagine how Trypillians lived and what they believed in. The heart of our university is a scientific library. Surrounded by a picture square and cozy park, it's a good place for studying and relaxing. The library was built in 2006 without any governmental donations, only with the financial support of our friends and patrons from the Ukrainian diaspora. Nowadays, the scientific library of Ostroh Academy holds more than 500,000 of books. Among them, there are books of our professors. In our university, we have a large number of research centers and institutions. For example, the Center of Political Studies, the Center of Ostroh Heritage Studies, the Institute for Ukrainian Diaspora Studies, and many others. In our university, we also have a Center of Islamic Studies, and in my hands there is a work of our professor Mikhailo Yakubovich. This is the full translation of Quran into Ukrainian language that was complete by Professor Yakubovich. This translation was approved for printing by the King Fahd Glorious Quran printing complex in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The museum has a valuable collection of works by the famous American sculptor of Ukrainian origin Myrtala Pilipenko. The revival of the Ostroh Academy was mostly made possible with the help of Ukrainians from abroad. Myrtala made her invaluable contribution. He presented a collection of 15 of her works. Myrtala's works are the special fusion of art and philosophy. It's like a conversation that Myrtala has with us, communicating through her works and poetry. The sculpture Ukraine Phoenix Stork has a lot of symbols. The outlines of flames and stork symbolize a trident. The stork is a traditional symbol of Ukraine, and the broken circle around the trident symbolizes the liberation of Ukraine, which was reborn and appeared as a phoenix from the ashes. The art cluster is new and modern art space at our university. Now here is an exhibition of world-known and talented Ukrainian artist, writer and poet Emma Andreevska. The title of her exhibition, The Space of Emma Andreevska, in the best way describes the mystical and surreal nature of her works. Each Emma's work is like an illustration to a fairy tale, but at the same time it requires attention and deep reflection. The new campus was opened to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the restoration of the Ostroh Academy. It's very important for us that this project became possible thanks to private and governmental financial support, and now our students have all conditions to study in modern labs. The new campus and tower is also a symbol of Ratush from the 16th century, and it shows us that university care about not just the history of academy but also the history and the heritage of Ostroh. National University of Ostroh Academy, tradition which shapes the future.